We are on this worldwide, internationally syndicated show, which airs in time zones around the planet, and I'm your host, Bob Wiegand, and this is the Wiegand Files. My guest tonight is Michael Greenup. He has been studying UFO phenomenon and the Billy Meier case, among other things, for over 40 years, actually probably his whole life. We're talking about Billy Meier, a man who has taken over 1,200 clear daytime photos of extraterrestrial flying discs we Earthlings call UFOs. And Billy Meier took these photos with a 35 millimeter camera that had its f-stop stuck at near infinity, so some of the photos are crystal clear and others are a little fuzzy. And I have personally seen the original photos that Billy Meier took, and I can tell you they have absolute no fakery involved. Billy Meier took all the photos before computers even existed, thus there was no photoshopping involved. It didn't exist at that time in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. We know him as Billy Meier, but his actual name is Edward Albert Meier, and the name Billy is actually a nickname that Mr. Meier acquired while in the Middle East traveling in his youth, and he wore a cowboy hat through his travels, and he tended to have a liking of the Wild West outlaw Billy the Kid, and so people nicknamed him Billy. But his actual name is Edward Albert Meier. So Billy Meier, or Billy as he's affectionately named by many people around him, has written over 50 books and over 25,000 pages of contact notes, which are dictations of his conversations with various extraterrestrial humans who are just like us, but they live on another planet called Era, 450 light years away, near the constellation of Pleiades. There is an opposite reality in our universe that exists. In other words, for our universe, there's an equal and opposite, what you'd probably call an anti-universe that exists, because everything exists in opposites. So in that reality, one cannot exist without the other reality. In other words, if we destroy our planet, it has an absolute direct effect to their space-time configuration. And the law of physics, there is an antimatter aspect that is tied to this reality, and our physicists never put in the opposite antimatter formula to our present physics, but it is being worked on right now. And the ET's existence is tied to this planet. We can all kill ourselves and make ourselves extinct, but they will not let us blow this planet up. Blowing our planet up would have a negative ripple effect upon the opposite reality of our time continuum. Billy is also known around the world in very important circles such as the Vatican, the Mormon Church, Jewish rabbis, governments of the world, as well as secret services and secret space programs, and probably even NASA. Billy's specific, accurate planetary measurements in our solar system was printed many times before NASA even had that data from the satellites that they sent out in space. Also, Billy's prophetically accurate information every evangelical minister would love to know, such as 2 Bushes being president and the event of 9/11, which Billy foretold many years before, and even many more events, which have all proven to be correct over the last 65 years. You know, at the age of 14, Billy Meier sent out a letter, which was in the year 1951, and then again in 1958. And Billy Meier sent this letter out to world leaders around the world, and he was telling them about the future they are creating, what it would look like, and what disasters would follow. But no one responded to this 14-year-old boy. The question would be, how did Billy get this information? As Billy states himself, he was selected by a race of people from another star system in our galaxy to bring the truth to humankind. Billy was selected because his spirit form, being prepared for this lifetime and many times before he has done this work, he says, there were actually 6 spirit forms that were chosen, but only Billy accepted. The others were fearful of religious persecutions, and they declined to fulfill the mission, which Billy has done so far. Some of the things that Billy has predicted that have yet to happen, I'll just read off here. I have them listed, and that's a little uncanny. I'd really hate to see them happen. But he says there will be a legalization of prostitution that would be taxed, and it would be respectable. And the prostitution will be carried out throughout the world, and it will include children. A rising sea level of 5.5 feet by the year 2100. The earthquake called the Cascadian Fault, which lies off of Canada, Washington, Oregon coast, destroying San Francisco. It will last for 5 minutes. It'll be 9.0 or greater, and it will cause tsunamis, as well as could trigger the San Andreas Fault, which would flood the Central Valley of California, making the coastline of California an island. This is yet to happen, but I was told would happen perhaps 10 to 15 years from now. I was told it would not go past 25 years. There would be a rise of neo-Nazism, and it will come back in its full form. True love will become a rarity, with marriage being a social arrangement. USA going into anarchy by 2020, and then civil war, with USA broken into 5 parts, with sectarian religious leaders ruling with iron fists in each part of the USA. 5 parts, 5 leaders. Religion will spread over the world like a plague, with religious sectarian leaders taking their people's money and stirring their people to unrest, war, murder, terrorism. Modern human enslavement will be debt where banks run countries. Overpopulation will create famine, pollution, and kill parts of our planet and oceans. Many waters will dry up. Many waters will become poisonous. Earth will thirst for retribution. Provoke the attack of people who call out for the truth. However, Earth humans will go astray in an impenetrable labyrinth with great anxiety and suspicion, driving relentlessly forward to find a way out of the misery. And this will last for 800 years. And in 1981 and then again in 1987, Billy stated that the USA will have 2 civil wars back to back, and then the country will be divided into 5 parts, with each having a sectarian leader. This again, Billy confirmed in May of 2016. He said America will be wrecked. Billy stated that to Michael Horn in an interview conducted by Michael Horn at Billy's residence in May of 2016, among other things. While people may debate if Billy Meier is a modern-day Nostradamus or a real UFO contactee, no one can dispute his uncanny prophetic accuracy. And with the help of Michael Greenup, we will delve into this man, Billy Meier, what he has to say about us, and what it really all means for us. We are ending this year, 2016, with a lot of strife, confusion, war, environmental damage that continue to escalate, just as Billy Meier predicted decades ago. And I'll tell you personally, I live in Hawaii, and I have been watching the sea level rise here. And in fact, it's known by everybody on the islands in Hawaii that the sea level is rising because we're watching the beaches disappear. The sea is taking the beaches away. Just down the street where I live, there's several condominiums. There's actually 9 different condo complexes. They're about 12 stories tall each, and they all lost their beaches in the last 6 weeks. People aren't doing anything about it. They're in denial. They're watching it happen, but they're in denial. And the ocean is actually coming into some of the bottom level condos. The beaches are totally gone. They will not come back. The trees are falling over. There's actually a building falling in the ocean right now. And if they continue to ignore the sea level rise, they'll have to bring in heavy equipment and tear these condominium complexes down. In fact, I've talked to some of the brokers in town here, and they're refusing to take people to these condo complexes, their clients, to look at buying them. So without any further elaboration, I'd like to introduce Michael Greenup.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me. How I got to the Billy Meier extraterrestrial contact case, it actually involves many years of things happening in my life. And I'll just give some brief examples. It was like when I was a young boy, the religious scholars had discovered that, the one we know as Jesus Christ wasn't born on December 25th. and they had all the proof of that, but yet nothing's done about it. And I was very curious about that. And there's a whole bunch of other things that happened. And then in the Bible, one of the Bibles, I think it was King James. I had every written Bible there was at one time for doing research, looking for the truth, like matching everything together, trying to figure things out. And so in one of those Bibles, I think it's King James and the others as well, it talked about, it said that the one born would be named Emmanuel. It says that right there in black and white. And I wasn't able to get any answers on that. And that showed up years later. And I was in church, I sang in the choir, and I asked many questions in Sunday school, and I was rejected and ridiculed for my questions because I was trying to get to the real truth, even as a kid. So there was a lot of red flags. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid through all those years because I never forgot how a lot of this truthful information was suppressed, and still to this day, still suppressed. And so I met some people in the 80s that were involved with the Dead Sea Scrolls extensively. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it told that the one as Jesus Christ, he didn't die on the cross, that he married and he had children, and it tells this whole different story. Well, Barbara Thiering wrote a book called Jesus Christ and the Riddle of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, the original video they made of that, which I have, it tells that Jesus Christ didn't die on the cross, and he married, he had children, and all these type of things. Well, the new version they have on YouTube, they took that out. See, there's more suppression of this information. Also, on the original video, you had those top scholars, and they actually admit to a lie that was presented a long time ago that people believe to this day in their religious beliefs. It's on that video. So, having this information, so when I first seen this, I thought, okay, I'm going to go and prove this wrong, because I didn't know anything else. This is going too far. Trying to tell me that, this Jesus Christ was this and that and the other. And so, married and had children, that doesn't fit with anything else I've ever known. But see, because I didn't drink the Kool-Aid, I was able to look at this as an investigator and start doing the research. Exactly around that time, I run into a guy. His name was Bruce Mace, on the Utah-Northern Arizona border, and he introduced me to Wendell Stevens. I contact Wendell Stevens. I actually bought a UFO picture from him. They got from Billy Meier, hanging right here on my wall. And so dealing with Wendell, a retired Air Force colonel, and Wendell didn't talk about this much, but Wendell investigated Billy Meier when he was in the military. And that's, and because of some of the things Wendell had said, they took away his retirement money, I believe, for a while, his pension and stuff. He was working a 40-hour job for a while. And anyway, he got it back, and because he proved he didn't violate any oaths. Because Wendell Stevens is the one that's solely responsible for putting Billy Meier on the map in the United States. He hired with his own money the private investigating team that investigated Billy Meier and put this information out there for people to take a look at and let it know that this is really going on. And Wendell told me right point blank that this information is so good that he couldn't be quiet about it. He had to get it out. And one of the things he told me was the United States Air Force gave Wendell a camera. It's a sealed camera. and he gave it to Billy, and Billy went out and he took pictures, and he gave it back to Wendell, and they developed those pictures, and then after that, that's when the CIA put an installation next door to Billy, and the Council on Foreign Relations put one on the other side, and they still to this day monitor Mr. Meier and all the activities that go on there. And this Council on Foreign Relations, they've admitted publicly a while back that they had their own photos of the ships coming in to pick up Meier. Of course, the CIA will never mention anything about it, and the United States Air Force will never mention anything about it. But these are the things that transpired, and I got to know about, and so it, you know, it's an interesting thing.
You know, it was interesting. I was talking to Michael Horn, and he said that Wendell Stevens told him, Wendell Stevens telling Michael Horn that Wendell Stevens said Wendell did not invite any of the MUFON or UFO investigators with him on this investigation quest with Billy Meier when he got out of the military, because he said, Wendell said to Michael Horn, he did not want MUFON or the UFO investigators contaminating the information and evidence that he was going to go gather. So he did it in a vacuum. He had agreements signed with the Jet Propulsion Labs in Pasadena not to share information. They would gain it from Wendell. Wendell would gain it from them. They would do the research, and they would keep it with themselves. And so when MUFON came in and started attacking the Billy Meier case, they were actually doing it out of jealousy and anger in the beginning, because they weren't allowed to have access to any of the information, and Wendell Stevens did that on purpose. I just wanted to I don't know if you knew that or not, but Michael Horn told me that about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that is true. He checked out those groups, and some of the other factors was that he didn't have any money, they didn't have any backing or anything, and he would have to fund all of it. And they wanted him to sign these agreements, and he refused. You know, if he put up all the money, then he's strapped under these agreements. Well, he would not agree to that, and that was the decisive
That's the interesting thing with Wendell Stevens. He spent his own money. He never took money from anyone else, and I heard that his pension was cut off for a time because the military wanted him to stop. Is that correct?
Yeah. They tried to say he violated his oath, and he ended up proving that he never violated his oath.
Wow, that's incredible.
So, because when he hired who was that? Brett Elders, the Elder
Brett
brothers.
Elders, yes.
In those people, you know, you can see him on YouTube and stuff. You pull up Wendell Stevens on YouTube, and you'll get an incredible amount of information, and you know, and you'll see what a really good guy Wendell really was. And so, having that private investigating team putting this on the map, yeah, that had the United States Air Force very upset. But see, he proved that they can't stop him from that, because he never violated his oath. He had this investigated and had it put out there, the information from a private investigating team.
Oh, so he was just...
And that's
how he did it. He had the team come up with the information, and he just presented it.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. He told me privately a whole bunch of stuff, and you know, we talked about a lot of things, and that I don't want to talk about here until maybe another time. So, but if you see, in my life, I've seen many UFOs, and where I live over here in Arizona, and in this particular area where I live, they actually, in the 1950s, they had a little UFO group, and it was kind of hush-hush, but the whole town, the whole area here had their own little meetings because they seen them so often. But, you know, back in the 50s, you couldn't talk about that. You know, you labeled, you know, a nut, you know, a kook, nutcase, and all this type of thing. And because of living here, through all the years I've been here, I've seen all kinds of incredible things here. And also up in southern Utah, or by the Grand Canyon, I mean, I had one looked like a star up in the sky, started moving around and come down and landed landed on the other side of this knoll, and a car drove out past me. I'm out there in the dark, out in the desert. Drives out past me. You can see there's one person in it. Goes over the hill, and when the car comes back, there's two people in it. And that's where that thing landed. I come up on my horse. It was on the ground, and it took up and made a big, beautiful orange sphere. It was so really cool looking. And it went up and it turned white. And the time I got my camera out, it turned to a cloud and it was dissipating. But the picture shows a cloud with a light coming out of it during broad daylight. And so anyway, I've seen all kinds of things here and all these people here as well. The ranch that's near me here, there was one that came down and hovered for 35 minutes. And the owner, the manager of the ranch, they come driving in from town, from Prescott, Arizona, and they seen it, and all the cars are on the side of the road, all looking at it, and nobody will talk. This is back in the 60s, early 60s, so nobody talked about it. And they went on, when they drove on in the ranch, it stayed right there, and then it finally left. But it was right there for everybody to see. And these are the type of things that have happened here. Now, are they extraterrestrial or terrestrial? I believe that most of them at this time were terrestrial because of the technology that they could do, and obviously some of them were terrestrial. But I don't have pictures and stuff to take to Billy Meier and have him see exactly what they were for sure. We can do that. If we have pictures or something that we discovered, we could take there to see if it's real or not, or if it's terrestrial or extraterrestrial.
Billy Meier's done a lot of that, of validating extraterrestrial activity and UFOs. People have gone to him over the years, and he's actually answered them. Correct? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, they exposed all the liars, deceivers, the charlatans. They exposed all of them.
Is there a reason why Billy would do that? Why he would expose them? Did you see a purpose behind that?
Well, I don't know. Well, the purpose behind it would be, enough of this nonsense. They're about the real deal. They're strictly about accuracy and truth and nothing else. And remember, in their contact notes, how anal they are about accuracy. I mean, they're, Randy Winters found that out. Randy Winters did a lot of good stuff for putting out the Meier material. He's on YouTube and stuff, and he was a member there, and he would give his talks, and he would put out some figures wouldn't be correct. Well, they chewed him up one side and down the other. They really got after him for that, for not having the accuracy that they require. And so, that's what. So Winters eventually departed the group, and I don't think he's a member anymore, a passive member or anything. I'm not sure. You have to ask him. But that's what happened with Winters and that whole thing. Winters said, he was involved with it for his own personal spiritual information. He wasn't really into, trying to get all this information out as much as possible. So he kind of dropped the, but still on YouTube, his presentations are real good. He's a real good presenter, even though some of the information is not 100% accurate. He's still good. I'm not going to fault him for anything.
It's easy to listen to him and watch his presentation. It's neat how he does it. He does it in a story fashion, so you're following a story.
Oh yeah, I've watched many of them. Yeah, many of them. Yeah, he's really good. He's really good with it. So getting involved with this, what else? There's, I wish I had that book in front of me, the name of the author. I'm unable to bring his name up, because it really has been a real good example, because Billy and the female contactee named Semyaze went and saw the author of one of those books, because he was lying. He's not being truthful. He didn't have any extraterrestrial contacts. He made everything up.
Oh, he was saying he was a
and Billy and Semyazi.
He was saying that he was.
Yeah, he was saying he was a contactee.
Oh, he was putting in a lot of information. Like,
But,
they're telling me this, they're telling me that, and people started to follow him. And Semyazi and Billy went to go see him.
oh yeah,
Is that correct?
he was very believable. I have his books and everything, but I'm unable to pick his name's not coming up. But Semyazi and Billy Meier went and saw him, and he was face to face with Semyazi and Billy. And when he realized he had an extraterrestrial woman chewing him up one side down the other about this falsehood that he's carrying on, he quit, never showed up again on the UFO circuit. He just disappeared. He dropped off like he dropped off a cliff. That's how that happened. That's how that came about, and that's in the Billy Meier contact notes. Yeah, people. Here's the thing: if people who've never been exposed to contrary information to their religious beliefs, to hear this stuff, I mean, for the first time, I understand how they would have difficulty with this. And my situation is different because my whole life I've had, bits and pieces of stuff that's, contrary to the religious establishment. So I've had exposure to it for many years. So when I come to the Meier material, it was an easy deal for me. Plus the fact when I was a little boy, I knew I was reincarnated because reincarnation is real, and I also knew that there is life on other planets. And every time I hear anybody say that we're the only ones in the universe, I thought that was totally absurd, not true. That's just something I knew inside of me. So my situation is way different than many others because I seen this material. I knew this material was true, and it's what I've been looking for inside of me. I was looking for this. So I have a different situation.
Before you came across this material, I mean, you went through a lot of experiences, you saw a lot of things, you met a lot of people, and you garnered a lot of information that's contrary to what is taught publicly. And then you come across the Billy Meier material. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and the Dead Sea Scrolls was a big thing because it completely told a different story. Here you have the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the name Jesus Christ is not in the Dead Sea Scrolls anywhere. And the reason is that wasn't his name. And then I come across, and it was either the 1500s or before, the Roman Catholic Church admits to changing the name. They admit to it. I seen it. With my own eyes, I've seen the information. Because these people, these scholars who were after all this information, the truth, I was around them for a while. I got to see this information. I got to see their dissertations, all this paperwork. Like they spent 14 years learning these ancient languages, so they'd go to the original writings of the Bibles, okay, and they would write their papers. Well, guess what? The original writings don't match what the Bibles say. They took paragraphs out, they added things, they changed things. I mean, it's just it's horrifying to see what they've done, and it's all about mind control and controlling the masses to a certain belief system. And here's the other thing I've learned: the original writings. Now, your scholars know this, but you're not going to hear about it on the 5 o'clock news. The original writings were written 50 years after the last disciple died. So there's nobody to proofread, and people are going by memory, and so the scribes write this stuff down, and there's nobody to proofread it. So what are you coming up with accuracy? 40 to 60% of the very best to be accurate. Then they put it in these Bibles and make these changes there. Now what do you got? See, it's the truth has been smeared, suppressed, and now you have a society, you have these people who would rather kill and die for a lie than to even look at a truth. This is what they've done to the society. Because you remember, I majored in psychology, and I was trying to figure out, what's wrong with everybody. It all comes back to this.
The question I have is how has religion, due to these changes that were made in the Bible, changed the way people think? How has it affected their ability to process information, and how has it affected their psyche?
Well, it's obviously it has had adverse effects. It's had damaging effects, and that's crystal clear. And I don't have any answers to what to do about this because just like all the famous scientists for the last 200 years, they all made the same statement that the truth is stranger than fiction. That's
To
where we've
learn the
gotten
actual truth of things is it's not only exhilarating, it's kind of amazing, and it's a better story than anything that's been fabricated that I've come across.
Okay, that's absolutely true. But here's the reality of it, and I've known many people who have gone through it. First of all, you discover these truths. You look at it, okay, so you kind of resonate with it, and so you look at it more. What happens is these people realize they've lived their whole lives under lies, deceptions, and delusion. They get mad because I remember I got mad. You get upset, you get mad. Then you want to get even, So you go through that little stage, and then you finally come out of that. But it also makes your reality a lot tougher to deal with because you start seeing things much more clearer. You're seeing things for what they really are, and yeah, the truth sets you free in a way. It's inside of you. But then, you go through these little transformation things, because the brainwashing and the programming and everything that's been done to us, that starts going away. And so you go through all these little steps. That's what I've seen happen with myself and many other people. This is what happens.
And you mentioned earlier when we were talking that when people go through this process, if they stare or feed themselves too much of, I guess, pulling back the veil of the lies, of the deceptions, that it has a really bad effect on them, and that it brings too much negativity into their life, and they actually start to go broke, lose their job, and they end up pretty much impoverished from it. But you also mentioned that there are others that have not gone through that. And what's the difference there?
Okay. What we were talking about, okay, when you start looking at our society, okay, people say, oh, we're born free within the United States. First of all, those people don't even know the definition of the United States. That's the first key. And that all U.S. courts have their own dictionary, their own language, and you have to understand that, and you have to do some research of that. Well, what this leads to is you start reading like your driver's license, your name is in all uppercase letters. That has a meaning. I've got friends, master degrees in English, and I present this stuff to them. They get quite upset. So your name is all in uppercase letters. Well, that denotes, it's called a nom de guerre, but it's a fiction. It's a fictional created entity. And in a fiction, there's no such thing as a man and a woman. You are a person. It's a fictional created entity. It's equal to paper, equal to a corporation. You're chattel. You're a slave, a subject slave. So when you get into this and you really you're researching it and you're figuring it all out, well, people start having psychological negative reactions to it. It starts affecting your psychic, and so people become, lose their homes and everything else because they start becoming unraveled on the whole thing. And the difference is people who looked at it for what it was, and they didn't get a steady diet of it. They look at it for a while, then they do something else and come back, and then they learn it, but they don't sit down and have a steady diet of it. You get a steady diet of something negativity, and I learned that when I was in psych class, was the people who worked on serial killer cases, okay, they take them off there now because the cops and the investigators working on them, they started going crazy. They started going nutcases. You can't stay in that environment mentally stay in that environment. You've got to go do something different. And that's why. It has such a negative effect upon our psychic and our minds that you start going cuckoo. And that's a proven fact. So that's the difference. You start getting involved in this stuff, there's so much negativity. You cannot have a steady diet.
Do you notice that because of that it changes relationships around you, or you move away from relationships?
You will. Yeah. As you become more and more knowledgeable with things, you're lifting yourself up, your vibration, your knowledge, your intellect, so on and so forth. And then the people who are stuck in, not moving forward, not looking for truth, not investigating things, and not hungry for things that are real, you will migrate away from them. Because pretty soon you don't have anything in common. You can't even carry on a conversation with them anymore. That happens.
I guess a lot of people look at that as a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing.
Well, you'll start migrating. You'll find people who are like you, or who are researchers, investigators, who are looking for the truth and not afraid of the truth. Yeah, the truth can be very uncomfortable. Yeah, I've never been afraid of it. Not afraid of it. Stop being afraid. See, the society has instilled so much fear in the people. I mean, it's off the scale. And I put it to the test. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but it's real.
And it seems like it always goes back to religion. Every time.
It does. It does. That's the key. That's their whole element. Okay, I'll give you like this. Here, Earth humans. Okay, here's these big old tough guys, and I'm talking to them one day, and now they've never read a Bible, never owned one, and I mentioned something that they go, "You are talking bad about my God," and so they are going to try to kill me because I talked bad about their God. Now, see what they've done to the people. Here are these, killers, robbers, rapists. Literally, is what they were, and they saw an opportunity that they're going to get some brownie points, and they're going to get right with this God deity, and they're going to kill me for this God, and it's going to make everything okay in their life. This is the mentality that they've instilled.
Hey, I have a question. If you take a bunch of criminals like this and you incite them with religion, do you think you could create an army that would just go berserko?
Absolutely. Yeah, they know they can do that. Oh yeah, these people, the psychers, the CIA, and all them people, they know they can do that. Remember, I told you, some of those sci-fi movies of the mind control and controlling these trained killers, that's real. Because one of them lived here. I knew him personally, and he told me the last 2 years of his life what they did to him, the mind control, all the things they did. And
it sounded like that movie Conspiracy Theory, where they where in the movie Conspiracy Theory where they had his eyes open and he couldn't close them, and then he would go babbling around town.
Yes.
He was a taxi driver, and he would tell people all kinds of crazy stuff, and they'd get out of the cab freaked out.
Well, I saw that movie, and the things he says in that is true. That's what made the movie interesting for me, because he said statements that were absolutely true. Now, this guy I'm telling you about, he was a young man when he got recruited. He had superhuman strength. I mean, superhuman strength. When he was in his 70s, I knew him. He could still unbolt the motor in a car, a V8 motor with everything on it. He could reach over the hood, get a hold of it, and wrestle it out of the car. He didn't use an engine puller. I saw him do that. He brought it over and set the motor on the bench. This is the guy that they recruited. He killed for the military for 20 years. He killed for him for another 20 years after he was out. That's a real thing. And he told me he was bitter at the government for the things that he did to him, and he told me these things. It's a real thing. Like, he'd get a phone call, and he'd just go stand up straight don't say anything, listen to the call, hang the phone up, and be gone for a month.
Wow.
Just like a freaking movie, just like the movies. That really happened. He lived here. So those things are real. That's why, yeah, just one guy, and there was an army of them. So that's what makes things a little scary, things like that. So these are things that are real, that are going on. The masses haven't got a clue. It's clear over their heads. And this is what bothers me, is what they've done to the people's minds.
What do you think? I mean, this is just a question that just popped up. What do you think? I don't know. Why do they do this to the masses? Why do they keep the masses in ignorance and asleep and twist their brains around? Is it just for power? Are they having fun?
No, it's for control. It's about total control over the masses. Okay, think about this. The New Agers are not wrong about everything, and like Gray Brayton and them people, they're on track. Energy follows thought, and what you think about, you bring about. The movies, The Secret, and those movies like, oh, What the Bleep Do We Know? That's some really, really good information to get you to start thinking. Get your thinking cap on, because if the controllers control what you believe, the information that you get, they control your future through you, because you don't know anything else.
So you're doing it to yourself.
You're doing it to yourself through their control.
Their control of information.
This is real. And the people out there that hear this, they have never been exposed to anything. They're thinking, we're out there in left field without a glove somewhere. But this is real. And if you gather enough information, you'll see it for what it really is. And these controllers, and the governments and religions, they know this. They know that the masses aren't going to be able to handle what we just talked about. Not very, very big doses, and not very high percentages. Some people will. The whole thing about this Meier material is to get this information to be known. And the people who are looking for some truth, and they've tried all kinds of things, religion, New Age stuff, and nothing's working, to let them know that there's something else out there to take a look at. And that's what's important about the case, is this information is now available.
It's a lot to digest. It's a lot to think about.
Oh, I've been reading this stuff for over 30 years, and it just goes on and on and on. But the information is highly valuable, and you don't lose it. You don't lose it. If you read some of this stuff, and you understand how reincarnation really actually works, and how the psychic and our subconscious mind and our conscious mind, and the spirit within us, and another thing that clears up. When I was involved with all this religious stuff, there was these arguments about the spirit and the soul. And so what they come up with was, they tried to say that, there was two different schools of thought, but it meant the same thing. Well, when we dug deeper and they got into the original writings, that wasn't the case at all. What it really said was, there was a spirit and there was a soul, and they were different. And that's all you can get out of it, because he didn't, the writings didn't cover it. Well, in the Meier material, in the spiritual teachings, it tells you that the soul is located in our solar plexus, dealing with our psychic, and it will die, our personality, and it will die with the body. And the spirit is located someplace in our brains. It doesn't die, it doesn't get sick, and it doesn't get tired. And that's what reincarnates into the new bodies. And it imprints the DNA each incarnation. It covers the whole thing. And once you start seeing how this whole thing works, you have a different outlook on stuff. You think differently. And that's another thing they talked about. The Earth humans don't think properly. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer. And being a dowser in our the top dowsers in the world with 100% accuracy, map dowsing and everything, finding anything they want to find. They talked about the inner self and the higher self. They didn't have any other words for it, but they said that knowledge and that power comes from within, not from without.
So they were searching for the truths within themselves to be able to douse and find things, whereas those who sought for truth without themselves, someone else telling them what it is, their dousing never worked.
Never got there. And so the key to some of their successes was learning how to think properly and to ask the correct question. So being a dowser and being a part of a dowsing group here in the Prescott, Arizona area, we've learned, about how to ask the proper question. So like, for instance, you got your dowsing tool, and it's going to give you yes or no. You got a program to operate that way. And you ask yourself, you got a hamburger before you, and you say, okay, is this hamburger, is it good for me to eat a hamburger right now? And you get a yes. Okay? But if you ask the question, is this hamburger before me, is this good for me? You get a no. See, understanding how to ask the questions. You could have a hamburger, from McDonald's or something. I hate to pick on anybody, but that's not good for you. But a hamburger of a different source, or better, grass-fed beef or something like that, that'd be good for you. So you have to understand success and understand how to think properly and ask the proper questions. And when you read the contact notes and Billy Meier contact notes, you'll see Meier through the years how he changed how he asked questions. He'd ask a question like 20 years ago. He'd ask a question, he'd get an answer. They just go no, and they wouldn't say anything. So a few years goes by, he asks the same question differently, and they talk for an hour. Okay, so and so he started learning how to deal with them because they didn't understand us, and they're so rigid, So he learned how to ask questions and get it worded right, to pin them in a corner to get the information out. He literally, using a crowbar, pried information out of those people. And he got a huge amount of information out of it. And they even admitted that they gave Meier more information than they had planned on.
So, with that analogy, the masses, the mainstream people, average person, including myself, we have never been taught how to ask questions. We're just taught how to listen. Is that a little more accurate?
Well, yeah, because our brains are not working right yet. We're just getting going here, and until you get that all working right, you will not be able to formulate the proper question to get the answers you're looking for. That's just it's been proven out, and I've learned that from reading the contact notes.
So when people come across information with, especially those, people have, like we were talking about earlier, religion is the culprit of everything. I mean, politics is religion, government's religion, schools are a religion. Everything we go to is a religion. It seems to be the basic concept of religion is, I'll tell you what you need to think, and don't ask me any questions. And this is the way it is. The new age religion now seems to be circular in nature, like you jump on a hamster wheel. If you accept Jesus in your life, then the Holy Spirit will tell you he's real, and anyone that tells you he's not real, even if you lay out the whole thing to them, because they have accepted Jesus in their heart, the Holy Ghost has told them it's real, and therefore he is real, and what you're saying is heresy, and you must be tricked by the devil. And that's how encapsulated religion has put people in their own thinking processes. They're actually damaging their own mental state with this circular thinking. They can't grow with it. Is that how you see it? Or
well, that's really true. You see, and because of the fear base, they think that they always have in the back of their mind this fear. So if they don't accept that, then bad things are going to happen to them. They're going to go to heaven or hell and all this type of thing, and that's just not true. So, but there's for all these years there hasn't been any other information contrary to what you just talked about until now. It's available now. My thinking, and we talked about this before, this should have been presented many years ago. Think about that. We'd had this information when we were little kids. Where would we be today? We'd be way
I
ahead
think
of the
this
curve.
information allows a person to actually create their own destiny, their own future. I think it allows them to create things in their life, like creating a home.
Absolutely. Look, that's the key. What we've been saying here. See, if you're limited in your thinking ability and what you know and what you do know is not true, how could you create from that anything but disaster? So you say, so
You
you
can't create it, it has to be given to you.
if you can't create, you can't create it if you don't have all the pieces. You don't have the information to the right information to
Here's
work
an
with.
idea. So the controllers control us. They don't give us the right information. We believe in things that are not real, and we have to look outside ourselves for truths, and we have to have it given to us. So we all sit in fear that, well, if we have a job or if we're in the military with a clearance or we're getting income from some university, whatever it is, it's because outside sources are giving us a living and we're afraid to speak up. We're afraid to say anything outside the norm and we're not allowed to ask questions. We're just supposed to do. And now the controllers have a control over us because we don't know how to control our own thoughts and how to create for ourselves. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly. And George Carlin did a skit on that very thing. I mean, he's right about what he said. About religion and other about the controllers and everything. He covers it. And so we are see, what they want to keep hidden is this: we are extremely powerful within us. So you get enough real, true spiritual teachings information, and you are able to take control of your life, take control of what happens in your life. You have complete control, and then you can create the life you choose to
It's a
have.
self-directed life.
That is the secret of this whole thing. And the movies, The Secret, and What the Bleak We Know, they touch on this stuff. They touch on this, but they're missing some information. The Meier contact notes give you that missing information. It's in there, and you can start doing something with it.
And take the next 5 or 10 minutes and just say whatever you think is important, what you'd like to go back and cover that you didn't elaborate on enough because I probably cut you off on questions. Um, so the floor is yours, and just express things that you think are important right now that people should hear.
Well, basically, at least take a look at the information. FIGU Canada, FIGU Canada has a really good website. The U.S. has a website with Michael Horn. It's not as easy to maneuver around there and through it. There is a movie you can see for free on YouTube called The Silent Revolution of Truth. That's a good one to watch. FIGU of Canada, FIGU of Canada, has put out an introductory to the Meier case. And just take a look at it and see if it resonates with the information. Not everybody's going to, and that's just, that's okay. That's where you are. That's what's going on. Later down the road, they might return and take another look at it and look at the information objectively. Like when I was introduced to Wendell Stevens and this case, this Meier case. I did not agree with the agenda of the extraterrestrials, the Pleiadians. I did not agree with their agenda. I was upset about it for a very long time. I didn't, I thought there was much better ways of doing things, getting information out, making things happen, and so that was just me. And there's other people the same way, and I still not 100% trust the whole thing, even though their track record is, non-tarnished. I mean, their information, their accuracy, everything they've talked about it has been right on the money. But still, they don't understand the Earth human very well. My opinion is they're too spiritually advanced to be dealing with Earth humans. They should have had somebody else, not as advanced as they are, to deal with us because they could relate. Somebody else could relate to us better. These people can't relate to us. They're way out there. They're 80,000 years more advanced. That's too far ahead to deal with us. So I've seen a lot of problems there, and this case could have been more widely known if they um, understood the Earth human better. Because I've won many asked why don't they just fly a mini mothership around the planet and go land at some government, some country, and let it be known that they're here and here's the agenda and here's our problems and here's how we solve it. And they said that because of the religious beliefs here on this planet, that there'd be massive suicides and that they would be responsible for that, and they don't want that responsibility. This is why they don't do it. And I thought to myself, well, geez, it'd be the best thing that ever happened to us to get rid of these nutcases, because look at all the warring and everything that's going on. They're never going to stop, not until the religion is gone. They're not going to stop. So, but they won't do it. So, but hey, here's something they did say. There's 3 extraterrestrial groups that are physically located on this planet, and that one of them was thinking about making themselves known to the world. That's on the table still. So that's in our favor. So this something like that could happen. They're not associated with the Playaran group and their agenda. They're not as advanced, and they're not part of their whole thing they got going on. So that would be a good thing if that happened. I think so anyway. But that's something that could happen. You think about that. That could change a lot of things. I mean, that could change some of these prophecies of all this doom and gloom and warring and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that could I see positive from that event, and I kind of wish it had happened. Because I'm not in for. Oh, and they say when we have that civil war starting in 2020, it won't go past 2020. We're going to go into a civil war. It's going to last for years. You want to think about that. You can, 2 back-to-back revolutions last for years. The people in this country are not set up. These people in this country have never seen anything bad. They've never seen revolutions. They don't get it. They don't understand it. When that light switch doesn't come on, they're not going to have their freaking cell phones. They're not going to have electricity. You'd be looking at 50% of the people are going to be dead, in a couple of years. That could really happen. And so these people don't get it. They don't understand the seriousness of this. And personally, I want to see that not happen. I just don't want to see it happen. I've seen the revolution, there in South America and what took place there. And, like the American people here, they don't have a clue. Okay, for instance, first thing that happens is all the pets get eaten, then everything out of the zoos get eaten, then the children start missing because they're easy targets to get for food. This is what happens in these countries forever. And this news media, this controlled news media here in the United States, they never show that. They never talk about that stuff. It's all hidden and hush-hush. Oh, don't want to upset anybody here, But that's reality. And since I know that reality, and I know you know it, that, we want to try to, stop this from happening. And I think that type of an event would really help. Maybe too little, too late, but.
Could you describe in South America how you saw a country that was doing well just get ruined and brought down into civil war, and the steps that you saw it go through, and if they parallel with what we see in America right now?
The long and short of it was this. The people organized, and I mean, they got organized too. And they got weapons, and they are really smart. I mean, I watched it. Here's what was going on. They had such an atrocity, so much corruption in the government, and they had all these killings. I mean, they're arresting people, beating people, and killing people, and doing all these things. So pretty soon the people had enough of it. I mean, they weren't going to take no more. I mean, those people, and they had that revolution. They took, was it San Paulo? They took that entire city, And so they met with the city officials, and they told the city officials they didn't want to take over. They just wanted justice, and they wanted the police to stop killing the people. That's all they asked for, and they got it. So that's.
You were talking about one time about how the police were attacking the people and how the people came in waves from different directions.
The thing was, they were so organized that their timing, they had a timing system, and they'd come in waves, and they'd hit and run, and another wave, hit and run, and they could be the authorities. They could not handle the way these people fought. These people had it figured out. They knew how to do it, and they were 100% successful. I mean, they went right after those cops who had been beating them and killing all their family members and everything. That's the first ones they went after, and they got them too. So then they talked to the authorities. They said, "We're not going to have any more of it. No more."
Did you see any of the countries in South America, like how it was taken down by the U.S. government and kind of how they did that?
Okay, so for all the people out there that think the CIA are the good guys, you got a rude awakening coming for you. The CIA assassinating people all the time, trying to take over governments, creating corruption inside these countries and stuff. I mean, it was atrocious. And the CIA to this day protects all the drug trafficking. Now, people don't want to hear that. Say, "Oh, I'm full of it," and so on and so forth. I got news for you. It is an absolute truth. And you need to wake up. The heroin trade is completely controlled through China and England. They control all of it. The CIA protects it. They got their agreements. This is what goes on in this world. You need to wake up to some real truth. This is the world we live in, and this is how it goes. The CIA were the worst people I ever seen in my life. They're awful people down there. Awful. Cold-blooded murders and everything.
Yes, they just work for money. They don't care what it is they do. It's all about money. I worked with them.
And they don't even see the cause and effect. They don't they don't see the cause and effect. What they're actually doing to these countries and these peoples and stuff. It's just atrocities. Just atrocities. And the enemies that's being made, like, all these other countries, and they gain some power, they're going to be coming here. And that's all because of what the CIA and these little secret governments have done. They've created all these enemies for all these atrocities, and it's all going to be coming home.
And you see that now.
I don't want to be here when that happens.
You see that happening now.
Oh, yeah.
All these terrorist acts seem to be Muslims doing it all around the world. San Bernardino shooting, the Florida shooting.
In the Billy Meier contact notes, it says that the CIA created ISIS by some activities that they did. They went after them. So ISIS was formed to protect themselves from the CIA and their activities. And it's just grown and grown and grown since then. That the CIA is responsible for that.
Yeah, Billy Meier also said that.
That's right in the contact.
Yeah, Billy Meier also said that Qatar is the financier. I guess the prince of Qatar, the king of Qatar, they're funding. They grew ISIS, and Saudi Arabia is involved in it too. They're funding ISIS. It's really a weird game. People don't understand it. It's like okay, the people who come out and tell you they protect you are doing the things to hurt you. They're not doing what they're telling you. They're doing something the opposite. And so the people support them, and then that supports war, and then that comes back home to roost. And then we have a breakdown in our society.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it goes, exactly. Yeah, so what people got to start doing is stop counting on somebody else to protect you. The Pleyarns made it crystal clear about self-responsibility and being armed and trained. And even those, with all of their incredible spiritual development and advancements and all their technology, every man and woman on that planet has been armed and trained with weapons. Everybody knows.
And that's what we have to do.
That is because weapons are a necessity. Yeah, exactly. Weapons are a necessity. You can't get too hairy-fairy and out there in left field there because weapons are a necessity. It's like every single society that's ever been developed and they get all hairy-fairy out there, and they forget about weapons and protecting themselves and everything, and they get all spiritual and everything. Guess what happens? Somebody shows up, takes them over, puts them in slavery. They go backwards.
Yeah, there's
That's
no
happened every
exceptions to
single
that in
time.
history, is there?
None. And they Pleiadians even say that in our galaxy, in this universe, no exceptions to it.
Wow, that's powerful. Well, Michael Greenup. I really appreciate everything you said, and I know we talked about Michael Horn a little bit and some of the things that he's brought back from Billy Meier in Switzerland, and this is very important information. I hope a lot of people listen to this, and it starts a dialogue, and people start talking about this. We're trying to create a network out there. We're getting to people out there that want to have questions answered and ask questions. And we have to figure this out for ourselves. No one's coming to save us. No one's going to help us. And anyone that thinks that they're going to be saved or helped is going to end up in some form of slavery or bondage or a mental cage that they're not able to even take themselves out of. They'll be damaging themselves.
Well, that's very good you say that. I need to add a little bit to that was the Pleiadians made it crystal clear that no one's coming to save us. And the top religious scholars in the world, digging in those original writings, they put a statement out many years ago that nobody's coming to save you. They made that was, of course, it was taken to every single, all the information from the Dead Sea Scrolls was taken to every single major religion in the world, and everyone without exception said they would not give this information to the people. They didn't want to lose their clergy. So, but people need to know the truth. You've got to save yourself. You've got to get smart. You've got to be aware of your surroundings. Be alert and get prepared because it's going down.
It is, and that's what I see too. And I want to thank you and for your time and putting this information out. It's very important, and thank the audience for taking their time to listen to this show and for future shows coming up. And we'll have to talk some more. You have so much information. We can't do everything in one show.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I thank you, Bob.